hope you're enjoying yourself so far.
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay in the back? Great. Just last week in Time magazine, there was a quote from a man named Bunker Roy. And he is a social activist from India who started the Barefoot College. Now, that's a school that trains uneducated, illiterate Indian women to install and maintain solar lighting systems. And it's very effective. And he states that the root cause of all development failures can be traced back to the top-down business model, where poor communities are never consulted, they're not taken into confidence, and they're not treated like equals. Now, sustainable community development, which is the work that Shanta Foundation does in Myanmar, is not an easy thing to accomplish. It has been estimated that the amount of money spent by Western nations on African aid in the last 50 years is over $2 trillion. In actuality, I read that it was close to 3, but I just couldn't believe it, so I dropped it down to 2. And you won't find many people who think that that was money well spent. And that's because sustainable community development requires a real, close, and equal partnership. It's a little, when it's done well, it's a little bit like an intricate dance, where you have to know when you're to lead, and you have to know when to follow. And if you lead too much, the work isn't sustainable. And if you follow too much, the development doesn't happen very well. Ernesto Ciroli is a sustainable development expert. And he tells a great story about when he was young and wanting to change the world back in the 70s. So he joined this Italian NGO, that's like an aid organization, that was working in Africa. And they were going to train the Zambian people to grow Italian vegetables, like tomatoes and a zucchini. So they found this beautiful, fertile valley right along the Zambezi River, just perfect for growing vegetables. Only none of the local people seemed very interested. So the NGOs decided they were going to pay the local people to come out. And sometimes they actually came out and worked. And Ernesto and the other NGOers were just amazed that these people were not interested in agriculture. But instead of asking them, why don't you grow anything around here? They just said to themselves, thank God we're here, just in the nick of time to save the Zambians from sure starvation. So of course, things grow really well in Africa. So tomatoes that are only this big in Italy are like growing this big in Zambia. And Ernesto keeps telling these local people, look how easy this is. Well, just when the big crop of juicy red tomatoes was getting ready to be harvested, 200 hippos came out of the river and they ate everything. Oh my God, they ate everything. And Ernesto and the other NGOs, they ran to the village and they said, oh my God, the hippos, they've eaten everything. And the villagers said, well, of course, that's why we don't grow anything here. Well, why didn't you tell us? Well, nobody ever asked. So Ernesto was afraid that it was only the Italians that were blundering their way throughout Africa. So he went to see what the Americans were doing, and the English and the French. And he came back feeling pretty proud of his own project, because at least the Italians were feeding the hippos. Now, you know, it's a funny story, but in reality, it's really tragic. And that's because Zambia today, 40 years later, is still one of the poorest countries in the world. 70% of its people live on less than $1.25 a day. That's the extreme poverty line. And most of them are kids. In Myanmar, there's also many families that live on less than $1.25 a day. And in a poor country, in a poor village, they are considered the poorest of the poor. They live life on a knife edge with no margin for error. So if circumstances push them over that edge a little bit, it's often catastrophic. There's a woman we know. Her name is Ting Wei. She was the mother of 4. And this is a picture of her just a couple of years ago with Ellen Park. And last month, she committed suicide. She was one of the poorest of the poor. And in the mountain villages this past summer, the crop failed. That means those families who don't have an alternative source of income are in big trouble. And her family didn't. So they had to cut way back on expenses. She could only afford to feed her family white rice and a small amount of vegetables every day. The kids were hungry all the time. Her 2 oldest, the 11 and 14-year-old, had to get pulled out of school because they could no longer afford the pencils and notebooks that are required in school. Ting Wei and her husband started to fight a lot. She wanted to borrow more money to tide them over. He was terrified that if they borrowed more money and couldn't pay it back, they would lose everything: the farm, the land, the house. Now, one Ting Wei is more than we want to see happen. And I don't want to see any more kids who can't go to school for lack of pencils, or kids who go hungry every day. It's just too sad to see. And that's why Shanta Foundation's programs are so crucial. We have helped more than 130 families start family pig farms. Ucho, one of our early pig farmers, calls his farm the bank because every day he makes a deposit in the form of food. And when he wants to make a withdrawal, he sells one of his pigs. And he loves the fact that he can earn an income when he needs it, not just twice a year when the crops are due. The average family income has more than tripled because of these pig farms. Last November, we started almost 400 family coffee farms. And in 3 years, when those plants are mature and they can sell the beans, their income will more than triple. In the last few years, we've started over 100 small family businesses with affordable loans from the Village Loan Fund. I should say they started family businesses. Aung Sung, who is a 26-year-old from Lone Chin Village, is considered a serial entrepreneur because in the first 2 years, he borrowed money from the Village Loan Fund to start 3 new businesses. He bought a chainsaw, and he was selling and delivering cut wood to the families. He started a pig farm, and he started a commercial chicken farm with 170 hens. And he told us, "I want 5,000. He grew up in a family that was the poorest of the poor, and now he's a model in that village. Now, these are just a few of the more than 15 different kind of programs that Shanta Foundation does in each of our 11 villages. We work really closely with an elected group of people to plan, to understand the needs, to plan programs together, to combine resources and monitor the progress. Every one of these programs meets a vital need that the villagers themselves have identified and prioritized. So in the early days, when parents said to us that they didn't understand and they were upset that the young children were dropping out of primary school, they had less than a 50% graduation rate. We got together with them to really understand the causes. And now we build new primary schools in every village. We build regional middle schools and start daycare centers for 3 to 5-year-olds. And we provide matching scholarships for the older kids to go to middle and middle and high school. Last year, 4 of our students went to university. And you cannot imagine how proud all the villages are of these 4 students, because they're the first in the history of their villages to ever go to university. And this year, 6 more graduated and are planning to go to university next year. Excuse me, I forgot where I am. Oh yeah. Later on, when families told us that healthcare was really difficult for them because the clinics and hospitals were really far away and unaffordable, we got together with them and we planned a training program for local healthcare workers that provide a safe motherhood program and general medicine for the villagers, and also provide preventative health education for easily addressed concerns in the village. Also, thanks to the Tom Graham's Memorial Fund, we provide free dental care for all children and adults. And believe me, they really need it, because before we get to these villages, no one owns a toothbrush. The adults are chewing this betel nut that turns their mouth red, and they smoke these local cigars. I mean, a lot of these mouths are frightening things to look into, so trust me. You know, there's a lot more programs that I wish I had the time to tell you about, like our solar lighting programs that have replaced candles and kerosene lanterns. I mean, what year was it in this country that we stopped using those things as our primary source of lighting? That's what they use, candles. Or the clean water systems that bring fresh water close to the homes. Our partnerships with these villages lasts for 6 years. We work really closely with an elected group of men and women to develop, to understand what their needs are and learn from each other so that we can mentor and train them. So that by the end of 6 years, they have a broad-based group of villagers who can not only maintain the programs that we've developed together, but actually can engage their village in further development activities. And key to that is a reliable and a renewable source of development funds. That's money that each village earns on the interest from their lending funds. And let me tell you, it's substantial. After 6 years, they have more than $5,000 generated every year that they choose where they want to apply it to for development activities, like matching scholarships or paying daycare providers. I mean, that's the way sustainable community development should work. We have 4 villages next month that are graduating with as much pomp and circumstance as we can manage. And after 6 years of working with them, they're excited and confident in their future. Over the past 7 years, we've worked with 11 villages, over 1,200 families. and we spend less than $18 per person annually. It's extraordinarily cost effective. And sometimes people say to me, how do you accomplish so much with so little? And I say, we don't accomplish so much with so little. We accomplish so much with a lot, because it takes a whole tree to raise a village. It takes the roots, those of us who are working every day, the board, the volunteers, and the staff. It takes a dedicated staff, this trunk in Myanmar, that are really solid, just like this trunk. And it takes all of these branches, which are all the villagers that participate, not just the committee members and the development team members, but all the villagers. And all of these beautiful leaves are the programs that we create together. And of course, it takes the rain and the sun to feed and nourish this tree. That's you guys. The donors that provide the lifeblood that actually courses through all the veins in this tree, so that together we create beautiful, delicious fruit. And that's the healthy babies, and the educated children, and the families that have enough money. The villagers know about this tree. They love seeing all the people that are involved in making their villages successful. And they're grateful to people that they have never met. Now, Shanta has a proven, successful model. We have a great reputation in the country, or at least our region. And we want to take this program all across the country. And we know that we can do it. And we are going to need a lot of rain and a lot of sunshine. So please join us.